You've seen the headlines. 2 more Canadian auto plants are gone. And now you're watching the media parade. Union bosses, auto execs, politicians, all of which are basically blaming the US and all of which are heavily invested in this auto manufacturing happening here in Canada. Now, here I come, and I actually have a little bit of a deeper dive, deeper than what I've seen in the media, mainstream media. I've actually done more research somehow than they have, or that they're showing us, and I'm a completely unbiased opinion. Why am I unbiased? Well, because although I review cars, I don't really care where they're made. They're going to be made regardless, they're going to be here regardless, and I'm still going to review them. I'm not heavily invested in any auto manufacturer, nor am I reliant on any auto sector jobs. That's why it comes unbiased. Now, I've actually done some deep dive into historically this has happened to other countries other than Canada. And I'm here to formulate a plan, and actually I might have a path moving forward that as a military veteran that worked in the Canadian Armed Forces, I have patriotism dear to my heart. So I'm not here to basically sacrifice Canada. I'm here to show you that perhaps we have a path moving forward, but there's a lesson to be learned first. So let's dive into that.
We've got breaking news to bring you this hour concerning Canada's auto sector. General Motors is dropping electric van production at its plant near London, Ontario. The automaker says decreased demand has pushed it to stop making the BrightDrop electric delivery van.
Hello everybody, my name is Pat and I am the Outsider. I like to review cars, talk about everything that's automotive, and I'm a military veteran that retired, and now I'm just doing this a YouTube channel. So thank you for watching first and foremost. Don't forget to think about subscribing and like the video at the end if you've enjoyed the content. Now let's get right into what's going on currently. We're losing some plants, we're losing some manufacturing, and it's all because the US wants them back. First of all, let's talk about the automotive sector in Canada. It counts about 4% of our GDP, $94 billion valuation. That's the broad manufacturing plan. When you look at manufacturing, just the manufacturing component alone, it's about a $16 billion industry for us here in Canada. So you're getting close to like 1% GDP kind of value here. But there's a human factor attached to that. Jobs. It's about 105 to 175,000 jobs in Canada, and 80% of those are in Ontario. Hence why Prime Minister Doug Ford is really up in arms about that. That's a lot of constituents that voted for him, and now they're all losing their job. I can definitely relate to that and understand his anger. And you can't forget also the multiplier effect that there between 700 parts supplier, mold makers, tool makers, and all that stuff. That adds up to over 600,000 jobs. Wow. But the thing is, 90% of our vehicles are exports. They're not for domestic use. We are a much smaller market that consumes vehicles compared to what we build. So we actually export 90% of it. So that's kind of why the US is like, well, we're the one buying all these cars. Shouldn't we make these cars? So you also have to relate to that. You don't have to like it, but you have to understand why the Don is doing what he's doing. And I'm not going to say that's good, that's fair. It's just, I can't change what the United States do. Neither can Canada, really. We can only affect change in what we decide to do. All right, you're giving a shit sandwich. Sometimes you gotta take a bite out of it. But just to understand where this comes from, the main reason why they're leaving is because, well, 25% tariff on anything that's non-US content kind of adds up to the bill. On top of that, medium to heavy duty trucks have an extra 25% tax on it going to the US. So, like I said, we export 90% of what we build to the US. So that is a hefty fee to pay. So, slowly and surely, the US are gonna take the automotive jobs. I'm sorry to be the one telling you this, and I know all the mainstream media are kind of showing you guys like, okay, we're gonna sue them, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and we're gonna what? What are we gonna do? Subsidize them even more without promise of them staying? I don't see the benefit in that. But what I do have is historical precedent because I'm not the one who's going to blame them for doing what they feel is right for their country. I'm not here to bash on the US in this video to say you guys should not be doing that. We shouldn't be in this kind of position first and foremost. Let's put ourselves in a position of strength. Historically speaking, a nice Commonwealth country brothers of ours, the Australia in 2017, they just decided, you know what, we're no longer subsidizing our auto sector anymore. We're not shit canning it. We're just gonna say, let it be and see what happens. And yes, I would think they would say because Aussies have a different way of speaking. And I'd say, well, they probably would say hey, but that's along those lines. But what did Australia do in response to that? They didn't just say, okay, well, that's it. No, they opened up their market. It all became a free market for anybody who would move in there. And obviously, we know who swooped in is the Chinese. Chinese auto manufacturers stormed the gates. And in 2020, they only had 2% of the market share. Fast forward to today, they have like over 18% market share of the vehicles being purchased in Australia. And why wouldn't they? They're offering really good quality product for $10,000 less. Why wouldn't you want to buy that? Because, and I'm saying good quality because if you watch Autoline, YouTube, you know a company called Karasoff basically did a teardown of Chinese vehicles and basically concluded that it's either on par or superior to what we have here in North America. End of the argument. Okay, the cheap EVs that have cheap quality, that argument is done. Okay, you didn't do a teardown of these vehicles. Karasoff, an American company, did, and that was their conclusion. So I'm not gonna argue with that. And the fact that they have now 18% of the market share, that is quite the jump in 5 years. But I also want to pivot a little bit to Brazil or to South America, actually, as a whole. They have Chinese EVs there. How's that working for them? I mean, you know, just down south of us, well, a little bit further down south of us. Well, I'm going to talk about, let's see, Brazil. Brazil has Great Wall Motors, Chinese company. They invested $1.85 billion, created 2,000 jobs. Mexico has over 20 Chinese automakers and parts suppliers, and since 2022 have invested $7 billion. I mean, that's why you see a little bit of reluctance here on Mexico, even though they're being pressured by the US to impose tariffs on the Chinese. I think subsequently they're navigating a whole, not 100%. They're going to try to find a middle there, but they're not doing 100% like we did. Argentina, cherry automaker, again, Chinese, has invested 400 millions in building a plant there that's going to create 6,000 jobs. And, they're all getting cheaper cars when we compare because if I'm looking at Australia, Tesla Model Y, same car we get here is $10,000 less. Why is that? Tesla is not a Chinese brand, is it? I mean, they do make some of them in China, but Tesla is an American brand. Why is the Tesla $10,000 less in Australia than it is here when Australia is renowned to having more expensive vehicle because everything gets shipped there, nothing gets made there? Well, that's because, well, BYD has vehicles for $30,000 that are actually on par with Tesla Model Y offers. And I'm not saying that sets the bar quite high or anything like that, but that's what happens when you let the Chinese in. These other manufacturers are either going to forego market shares, which they don't like doing, or they're just going to cut some prices down drastically. There you go. No, drastically, they're going to cut their prices down. Hence, that's why you have the same car we buy here. We buy a $10,000 more. And that's not even on par with the affordability that's over there. It's still a little bit over what BYD or MG or Cherry or Great Wall offers. It's just gonna give us options. And then once they do have those market shares, look at Brazil. What's Brazil doing? They're using the tariff lever, but they're not using it in the same way we are for protectionism. They're using it to attract businesses. We use the subsidizing lever where we say, okay, you know what, GM will give you $1 billion if you build a battery plant here, or Ford, or whatever. What they're doing is like, you know what, BYD, I might be giving you a 35% tariff. Now that you've had a taste of the market and you don't want to lose these market shares, 35% tariff, unless you bring more manufacturing here. So at that point, tariffs become how you bring in investment as opposed to having to subsidize investment. See where I'm going here? So that's the plan. We can either keep spending billions of our tax dollars trying to keep an industry that is already leaving. The US wants their jobs. They're making a point of taking jobs. They're leaving. Or we can pivot. My hybrid plan first, stop subsidies, open up the floodgates. Yeah, let them all in. And yes, that includes the Chinese manufacturers. The first people are going to win, you, the consumers. You're going to get more options. You're going to see a price war. And for the first time in years, we're going to see car prices actually trend downwards, as opposed to for the last like 10 years, it's only been going up. You're going to get more choice. You're going to get more affordability. Then, once they're established, pull that Brazil lever, as I call it, to bring jobs here. But the plan of getting jobs back doesn't stop there, because all those billions or hundreds of billions that we're no longer subsidizing the auto sector with, we can use elsewhere. I'm thinking education, healthcare, and finance where our strengths are. Because let's face it, there's no such thing as a Canadian automotive company. Ford, GM, they're US. Stellantis, arguably, that's European. And the rest of them are going to be Chinese, Japanese, and stuff. We do not have a company where 100% of the money is basically coming back home here. It's going to the CEOs and board people, and they're all in their respective countries. So we do not have 100% dedicated car company that is Canadian. But we invest the money that we are currently subsidizing, heavily subsidizing our auto sector, into our strength. What do we have a lot of? We have a lot of rare earth metals. Yeah, we can definitely start developing those, whether EVs are the future or not. I'm pretty sure they're going to come in handy. We also have a shit ton of electricity. How much electricity? Enough that we sell surplus to the United States at a big rebate, by the way, but we sell a lot of it to the US. What does that do? What do we need electricity can do? Well, you know what? AI is the future. Well, AI drinks a lot of electricity, all right? And they instead of setting up shop in, where power stoppages and rolling, what do you guys call it? Rolling blackouts in California and such. Just bring them here. Say, hey, here's a tap to electricity. We have a shit ton of it. Use it as you please. So we can create stuff and create employment that way. And you know what? That 1% of GDP that we lost over the auto sector that we are heavily subsidizing, well, I think those are going to make up for that. Now, we can stop fighting this 20th century automakers war and start heavily investing in what the future can bring us. That's just my thought. I'm obviously open for discussion. If you have good points, definitely bring them out in the comment below. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you want to have more conversation. I'm definitely open to doing a live where I interact with you guys. I am not closed-minded enough to say that this is my way or the highway. I'm here to listen. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one.